as architects, I think it's clear that we all have to deal with the changing of codes, no matter what state or municipality you're dealing with. Right now, there's currently 3 different energy codes in Massachusetts. One is the base code, 2 is the stretch code, and the 3rd is the special opt-in code. What all of these do is require, and that's part of the conversation with the developer, to see first what municipality they're in and which code they're under, and how do we achieve a cost-effective project with that current building styles.
Welcome to Boston Real Estate Times. Our guest today is Jeremy Baldwin. He is a multifamily lead at Maugel DeStefano Architects. And today we are going to talk to him about changing energy codes in Massachusetts. The goal in Massachusetts is to go net zero by 2050. And there are actually 3 different types of energy and building codes. And we are going to talk to Jeremy about them. So Jeremy, welcome to our show, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Pendra and the Boston Real Estate Times.
So now let's first start. The goal to go net zero by 2050 in Massachusetts, how realistic it is and how we are making progress towards that.
Well, I think one thing to think about is how Massachusetts has really led the way in energy codes. We have the most stringent energy codes in the entire United States now. So when we have developers come in from out of state, for example, we have a developer out of Florida, really educating them on what this is going to entail, because it's different. Over the last 2 years, really digesting what's going to happen here. It has an influence for money. It really has an influence on how you get a project approved, and really what it's going to entail for any of the third-party reviewers. But going back to, is this achievable? I think we need to set the bar high, and that's what the state has done. We're going to have
setting the bar high means bring it down from 2050 to 2040.
That would be pretty tough. I think one thing that everybody is trying to understand is what kind of impact is this going to have on our infrastructure? Is our electrical grid going to be able to take the capacity of what is being put into the law? Because now when you're in a specialized, and if I could, I'll actually take a step back. You mentioned that there's 3 different codes in Massachusetts.
So let's start with what are those codes? Yes. Let me ask you this question again. So Jeremy, if you can talk a little bit about what are these 3 main building and energy codes in Massachusetts, and what is their goals?
So right now, we have 351 communities in Massachusetts. Every single one of those communities has to abide by the base code, which is the 2021 IECC. And that goes for other states as well. But then on top of that, you also have the stretch code, which is not new to the state of Massachusetts. The stretch code has been implemented for quite some time. And right now there's 256 communities for the stretch code. And then you have the specialized opt-in code, where this is really the big game changer for.
So that is the net zero opt-in code, right? That's what.
Correct. Yeah, and more towns and cities are signing up almost on a daily basis. Right now, I believe we're around 45 communities that have adopted this new code.
So tell us about, so let's first start with a net zero opt-in code. What is so different about it and why they are adopting this?
Well, it really comes down to the requirements on a third-party reviewer or energy modeling, what it's going to entail for your building thermal envelope and your energy systems for your building, your mechanical systems. You're dealing with that in the stretch code as well, but the specialized opt-in net zero, that just goes a step further. For example, when you're getting into compliance pathways, we're trying to educate our clients on several different ways that you're able to permit a project and get and meet code. So we have to do early analysis up front to see which pathway we're going to take. You have Teddy modeling, you have HERS rating, you have ASHRAE, Passive House certification. Each one of those has money involved into it. So our clients need to know what's going to be the most affordable way. How much can us as the architects, how much can we take on our side? Do we need a third-party reviewer? So when you provide that to a client early on, they're able to get a good sense of really how much is this project going to cost now? Because it's going to be more than it was 2 years ago.
So can you give us some sort of an idea for it? I mean, I'm not going to hold it to you, but say if say 100-unit multifamily, say 5 years ago, say it cost was $50 million. Now with adding all these energy codes today, 10 years later, if I want to be, exactly, net zero opt-in code and stretch code and base code, want to comply with everyone, how much the price difference could be roughly between a range?
Yeah, it's tough to put just a straight figure on that, just because it matters size, it matters the pathway, it matters if you're specialized opt-in or stretch code. But really having a GC on board to do some early cost analysis, because they're the ones that are doing all the pricing and they're seeing it actively and live all the time, they're able to get a good gauge on what it's going to be. If you want to be really, really rough, we're talking, it's going to be 10% more, because you have to meet extra thermal requirements, triple glazed windows now, more attention to your air vapor barriers. You're going to have a third-party reviewer for the specialized opt-in communities if it's a passive house project and it needs to be certified. So all those things, you need to put that back into the pro forma.
Actually, that 10% number, that's what I'm hearing too in the marketplace. I think that sounds more reasonable that, that has to be added.
But it's tough. It's really tough to gauge it because we've had escalating building costs, and everything during COVID has just really, it's been tough to just put a pencil on it and say it's because of the energy code, because there's other factors as well.
Sure. Now, is there any incentive by the state or federal government on these such projects?
Oh yeah, there's definitely tax incentives. Mass Save has programs. Energy Star has programs. I think you need, as a developer, that's a little bit outside my wheelhouse, but you need to be able to utilize those state resources to bring down the cost of your project, because if you can't just look at, okay, it's just going to cost us extra money. It's really going to be that minus what you're going to be able to get back in incentives.
So the goal of a developer is, of course, build the project quicker, faster, better, and so that they can get some return on their investments, and they become, of course, very cost conscious. How they are dealing with this? That are they excited, or they have to do it because the law requires, or they are very environment friendly? I know there are different type of developers, but what has been your experience, and what you will recommend to developers?
It definitely varies per developer. If you have an inexperienced developer that is just trying to understand what this environment entails, it's tough for them to understand that you're going to have to incur all this extra cost on this building when 2 years ago there was no need for that. And now you have to factor that in. You have to get a little bit more nimble about how you're going to do some of that outreach that I talked about for tax incentivizing options. But then you have very experienced developers that have been pushing for this because they know how to use those tax incentives to their advantage. So let's say you have a project that is, I don't know, it's $250,000 a unit. That is a market rate housing project that you're trying to meet the minimum code requirements throughout. But then you have a project that's able to really utilize all those tax incentives, and it's an affordable housing project. You're really trying to go above and beyond, and those developers want it. They want to go above and beyond and utilize those tax incentives to their advantage. And that project's going to be, anywhere from $350 to $400,000 a unit. It really varies. And I don't want to say that every developer is the same. They're all different. It's really important that you understand what their goals are and who they are and what they're trying to achieve.
Okay. Now coming back, so that those of us who do not understand this, these codes here. So my first question is, if you go to the base code, for example, so is the base code new or it existed before or it has been modified?
Definitely been modified. So this is the 2021 IECC, and I'll just use an example of one of our projects in one of these base code communities where it's a phased project. We had one building that was permitted back in 2019, so that was underneath, I think it was the 2012 IECC. Then we went to the second building being underneath the 2015 IECC. And now this latest project, the third phase, is now underneath the 2021 IECC. So it's still the base code, but it's evolved. It's just like the building code. Building codes evolve, and you adopt a new area, but they have additional items in the 2021 that weren't there before. And one of the big ones is there's a section about achieving some credits. It's almost like a lead-based type of area in the code. And you're really trying to achieve 10 points now in Massachusetts. It's different for different states, but you're trying to achieve that 10 points. And some of those points are not really achievable right now. We've seen things in that code where they put in certain items, but manufacturers for mechanical units are just not up to speed yet. So that automatically makes it so we can't achieve those points. How do we get those 10 points in the most cost-effective manner? Some of the projects make it easy where if you provide solar panels on your roof, you're already able to get 7 points right off the bat. So, and I think it's about 2,000 square feet or so. I think it depends on the project size. For incentivizing that. And then if you're doing solar, going back to the tax incentives, you're able to use those, and you're also able to use the additional energy that you get out of those solar panels in the future. So it's still workable, and the base code is changing. I'm sure it's going to change again very shortly as well, once they realize certain things work and certain things don't work.
And so what about a stretch code? It has been there too historically, or there has been some changes there as well?
There's definitely changes in there, but it really does go back to, let's go back to the base code. You still have to meet all those needs first. Now the stretch code just takes things further. You have to have more modeling to your project, and then really just getting the whole team on board, whether it's the mechanical engineer, the plumbing engineer. You need to get everybody in the same room to really come up with the best path forward.
Okay, good. And then net zero and opt-in is the one which is really more exciting.
That's the big one. Yeah. I mean, that's the big one because it's,
and this is the new one, right? This is completely new.
Completely new, right? And that was, can't remember the exact date it was, but it was sometime late last year that most communities started to provide it. Well, it was written early 2023, and then communities started to adopt it, let's say mid 2023. And you'll see it's like a revolving clock. A lot of communities are going to be starting it in January. So some of these projects that we have in our hands right now are underneath the stretch code, and we're able to get away with not having to do a certified passive house project. But once we're at that specialized opt-in in January, if we don't get the building permit before then, now that project becomes a specialized opt-in, and it's going to incur more cost and more oversight and possibly redesign to the building. So timing is everything now.
Sure. Now, one more question I have for you is, so like if you take MBTA law, which was done during the Baker administration, that is applicable only to those communities which have the subway or train or some sort of MBTA. If they do not have, they don't have to worry about that. But for energy code, all the municipalities, all the neighborhoods, all the towns are required to follow the new energy codes. Is that correct?
Absolutely. That is correct. Every single town and city in Massachusetts has to file underneath the new base code at least.
Okay. And your last word on energy codes as an architect.
As an architect, I advocate for sustainable projects. It's admirable what the state has done to try to make our community the most energy efficient as possible, because we know that a lot of we're trying to become more of a green community in this city, and so that comes with a cost. And I think the energy codes and the MBTA communities, they can go hand in hand about how do we really try to incentivize more residential housing production in the state. I'd say the MBTA communities was a step forward to try to incentivize more housing. The energy code requirements have been a way to, unfortunately for developers, they've taken a step back because of the cost that it incurs and because of the challenges to get these projects permitted. And we need to balance it all out. So what's going to be the most driving force? We know that we need more housing production. We know that we need green communities. It's really trying to balance it all together to make it the best project for the community, the developer, make it all pencil out and have good projects moving forward.
Jeremy, thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed chatting with you. And until next time.
Yeah, this was fun, Upendra. Thank you very much.